This episode of Linux Gamecast Weekly was made possible by our Patreons. No, we don't know what's wrong with them either. Patreon.com/Linux Gamecast. And welcome back to another Linux Gamecast Weekly, the show that covers the latest Linux gaming news, reviews, how-tos, and most importantly, whatever the hell else we come up with. This week, someone has leaked Half-Life 3 details on the Reddits. But that post was deleted with a quickness, and another Steam developer goes full metal Streisand. So let's grab some popcorn, kids.
The VALVeberry Pi gets an SDK, but can it run Minecraft? And do you have an Intel integrated graphics card and want to play Grid Autosport? Why?
Wasteland 2 Director's Cut brings the mods. In Exile is making damn sure that game will be played for many, many years. NVIDIA fixes stuff all sneaky beaky like. We can only guess at what else they fixed in previous drivers.
I'm Brad Stone here at LGC Actual, switching the bits, doing this Nightmare Fuel, joined every week by our tame Canadian, Brad. And all the way from Space, Brad. Pedro, my brother.
How you, Brad?
And together with Brad Realm, Dynamic, joining us live. Every Saturday night, we form a bit of a cocaine Bradtron. Before we get started, we like to see what's going on in each other's life organs. I'll just start this out because I'm actually sitting in a chair instead of a ball for the first time in recent memory, because I was finishing up with the reads today at the station, and a couple of the call screeners there, they're really good to me. They'll bring me tea when I'm doing my reads and stuff like that, so I like to take them out to lunch, not all the time, but, once a month, once every other month. So, we're leaving the building, and one of the lasses, slips her iPad and starts to drop, and it immediately clicks into my brain. It's like, oh no, I must save tablet, and bam, right on my Brad organ. And it really bratted pretty bad, and then until I got it at Turbo Brad, I didn't realize it, but, I've kind of been having that issue this evening. Thus, the chair. No bouncy for me this evening. What's up, J-Man?
Oh, yeah, no, I've been dealing with a lovely little throat infection. I've been coughing up all sorts of multicolored Brads throughout the week. It's migrating to my head now, so I'm leaking all sorts of Brad on my brain. What about you, Brad?
I've been basically doing a lot of Brad this week, just so I can have a lot of Brad time next week. It's actually kind of Brad, when you think about it. Being able to Brad from home. Brad.
So, what's the Brad up to this week?
No. The Brad is still reeling from the onset of Bradnarok, as it were. But it's our Steam Linux!
Brad.
Of
the Brad, you fucking heathens. My God, I can't work under these conditions.
All right, let's get serial.
This is from the steamcommunity.com. The Steam Link forums, they have released the SDK for the Steam Link. We basically talked about this. This is nothing new from what we discussed last week. It's all official, it supports Qt version 5.0, OpenGL ES 2.0, and you gotta write your apps in C++. It's a bold move, Cotton. Let's see how it plays out.
I don't know, I thought it was kind of neat. Then I was thinking, I was like, oh, right, that's about the same specs as my old Arcos 101 G9, except it only has half the RAM. But then again, it's not running Java VM on top of a Linux kernel and all that. But that tablet, even at 800p, could just play, the Quicksters and kind of run the Plex. But, B-Baby, you're wondering how it's going to work, right?
Yeah, like I said last week, the Steam Link basically runs a VNC client that mirrors your desktop's display. It just brings up the Steam Big Picture mode on the desktop, and it's mirroring that in the TV. So how are native Link apps going to work?
500
Well,
bags,
that's the thing, though. It doesn't automatically fire up a VNC session. It's running its own little version of the Steam clients that basically just hooks into whatever detectable computers it can find. Because if you power it up and you don't have something with Steam running, you can still technically use it. But yeah, I mean, in terms of multimedia applications, which is what you'd consider this to use. There's not much headroom when it comes to apps, so we're curious to see what people come up with in given these fairly hefty limitations, all things considered.
I definitely think that will be something to sit back and find out. But a little bit of mistake, maybe, kinda.
Oh yeah, don't you hate it when you post something in the wrong section? Like I've done with the show posts several times.
Info. Turns out it was initially posted in a private Steam Networks group, but the Steam VR page showed this post, and apparently it's still there. Breaking. Valve apparently makes more money during the sales than they do when there's no sales. Am I getting this right?
Yeah.
Am I reading this correctly?
I mean,
I'm shocked.
This is confirming everything we know. This is no news. This is just your standard PR release that Valve puts out after a sale that says, hey, remember when we told you to drop your prices on your games? This is a good idea, and here's why. Because it's great for everyone involved. The developers, and especially Valve. But especially the developers and the end users. But especially Valve.
Yeah, and, well, I think this kind of ties into the next story. Because as you can see on those little graphs there, 2014, yeah, that's pretty tiny. And then you have 2015 as like 75-ish% increase in traffic. So Valve have done some revamping of their infrastructure to support the increase that they had, which basically boils down to them deploying 100 gigabits per second worth of internets for their in-home servers, as it were. And yeah, hopefully that'll, stop what's been happening whenever there's a big sale on the Steam store, where everything just goes 503.
I won't have to keep visiting his steamdown.com, which will be nice.
Yeah.
But I wonder I wonder actually how long is this actually going to last them given their rate of growth. They may need to consider some other distribution mechanisms. I mean, Blizzard's been using BitTorrent to sync out updates for a while. It might be worthwhile
one
for
thing.
Valve.
Games are a completely different thing, but Half-Life Brad has been confirmed over here. I know. This actually showed up on our Half-Life. This is a cross post to the PC Master Race. And what are they talking about? Well, this post actually made it over at our Half-Life. Somebody who claimed, the only evidence they had was a blurry Valve ID that you really couldn't make it out because of reasons. And they were talking all about what Half-Life 3 is going to be about. And it seems very vague, question mark, he says.
I mean, he does a lot of talking. If you go through and read this links, all this are inertia notes. Cocaine's a hell of a drug, folks. Brad is a hell of a drug as well. He talks a lot about the dynamic event-driven gameplay of Half-Life or Half-Life 3, where you're not going to get the same result twice. Things react in a semi-random fashion, and based on how you interact with the world as well, which seems to play hand in hand with sort of the direction Half-Life is going. That he does say that while VR is planned to be sort of supported, it's not the primary focus, which seems a bit odd based on the description, because that seems like it would be a prime target for VR. But you can read through the entire thing. It's all very vague. It's interesting.
It is kind of vague. The main reason I wanted to bring this up, I want to get your thoughts on it, P baby, is because you remember the what was it, Fallout 4 or Fallout? What is it?
Yeah.
That post that was on the Reddits from a disenfranchised employee that turned out to be pretty damn spot on, except for the people who was like, I said it was wrong, and then they came back and like, well, it was kind of almost sort of, even though it was completely spot on. Yep. I just wanted this to etch it into our Brad organs, so we would revisit it, if ever Half-Life 3 does come out, and we can check it out and kind of compare it. What do you think?
You know what? I'm just going to say this. Welcome to Reddit DramaCast. That's right. We're not talking about Linux games anymore. We're talking about Reddit drama, because that's all this boiled down to, was a bunch of people making a big deal out of something that someone said, that his friend said, that they gotta even...
Hey Drew, my dad works at Nintendo, and he told me that Half-Life 3 is definitely coming out.
You know what? I'm just gonna go away and keep fueling some more.
You also got to remember that there was this one guy who did have a dad that worked at Nintendo, and they were friends with Sony, and they made an actual
Nintendo PlayStation.
with the CD-ROM drive.
Oh
and
yeah,
all that.
the CD-ROM drive.
Got
Yeah,
everyone cold
that
feet.
one was confirmed. Yes.
All right, there's
No,
nothing to go to
but-
war about.
yeah. Yeah, no, before we move on to the next story, I was just going to say that we're probably not going to hear anything legitimate about Half-Life 3 until Vulcan starts
no.
becoming a thing. But yeah, it's time to get Medieval
On
2
your buttocks.
again. Oh, okay, so if you hadn't had enough of the Total War series, well, you got some more. This is Medieval 2, ported by the fine folks at Feral. And yeah, it's exactly like any other of the Total War games that they've ported. So if you're a real-time strategy guy, then that might be your thing. Apparently they are actually working on integration with the Mesa driver, so that's pretty nice.
Yeah, and it's yet another Sega game that's coming out for Linux. So, you know what? It's just further fueling the speculation that the whole Dreamcast 2 thing is a Linux-based machine.
Except that wasn't actually a press release from Sega. That was just a bunch of people trying to convince Sega, be like, hey guys, you should make a new Dreamcast, because like the Xbox and PlayStation and Steam box.
And even their original thing was like, we don't really want a new Dreamcast, we just want an updated Dreamcast that'll play our homebrew shit and all that brilliance. I was kind of shocked, because when I was looking at the store page, I was like, holy 4x3, Bradman, but it is 16 by 9. It looks like a title you would expect from 2006 to kind of look. Runs fine.
You mean 4x3? You said 16:9.
Well, the game is actually in 16 by 9 though.
But the screen
It is.
cap's in
I don't know.
4x3.
I haven't even started it yet.
Okay,
God
then,
damn it,
next
God damn it,
time,
Pedro, pay
Brad the
attention.
hell up. So,
All right, Wasteland 2. Yes, the fine folks at In Exile, the ones that used to be a part of Black Isle, but then that was shut down, and then they went to
That's
Obsidian,
racist,
and then
Pedro.
some of them went and made their own thing and called themselves In Exile. Yeah, this is Wasteland 2. This is the biggest Fallout game that ever showed up natively for Linux. So it's pretty awesome. And they have released the modding tools. You can go to their website. It's not compliant with the Steam Workshop. Boo! But yeah, you can actually get the development kit and start creating your own mods, creating a bunch of things. Now, I will say that if I'm ever going to use mods by the time I finally get around to playing Wasteland 2 all the way to the end, I don't want to go hunting for them on some sketchy-ass website and follow a README that makes me look competent as a writer in comparison.
Don't worry, you're not going to find that anywhere, Pedro. But yeah, I mean, I won't turn my nose up to mod support. What I'm actually hoping is, because In Exile is also handling Torment Tides of Numenera, that they start adding some modding tools to that, as well as a consequence of them adding it to Wasteland, because they share a lot of the same engine quirks. But it's time to bust out that old 286 to play some 32-bit games.
because it's
wait, you
really a
can't.
sequel to Elena's. Look,
Elan
it's
Sar.
Lego Mini Mist or something. It's a Mist. Like, they don't even fuck around with that. No, do they? Adventure game sequel to whatever. 3.99, but the system requirements. Brilliant processor, x86 32-bit Debian. Okay, really.
I mean, all things considered, the Linux system requirements are actually better than the Windows requirements. If you click on the Windows
just use
requirement, it
Debian.
just says XP
What
or
version of
7.
it doesn't matter. Just
The main
Debian.
reason I wanted to bring this up was due to this. This guy who did Elsnar also put it in a groupies bundle, right?
All right.
And as the story goes, groupies bundle, which they're always dirt cheap, whatever. I might buy something from like Indie Gala or Humble, and that's about it. But this was in there. Brad's a hell of a drug. LGC cares. And it goes like, okay, well, you can have your downloadable copies, but even though I'm required to give you Steam keys, I'm not giving you Steam keys. And Streisand effect, man. We all know how that fucking rock and rolls, right? But then he just went mental in the game's discussion page, on the Steam page, just wiping the forms over and over and over again. But what he originally said was, he never said that he would hand out Steam keys. But it turns out what actually happened, because as soon as you start deleting things, people start screen capping things. The only reason I don't want to spread Steam keys like that, because I saw lots of people reselling Steam keys from Groupies Bundle, thus making money on top of the bundle deal. Having the game 2 times allows you to resell it. All right. You can't change your mind after the fact, can you? I don't know.
Apparently the Groupies guys are in talks with the developer because he did sign a fucking contract, or at least agree to it. Mm-hmm. And if he doesn't cave and actually give people the Steam keys, yeah, it's probably going to be looking at some legal action. But about the game itself,
I don't know though. Is that just going to be legal action between the developer and Groupies, or will the actual purchasers have a stake in that as well?
I don't know. One of the things I'm thinking about. I mean, who does the responsibility fall on? I mean, should people be bitching at the developer or Groupies? I mean,
I mean, it's a valid question, all things considered.
As far as Groupies are concerned, they presented the developer with a contract, and the developer is failing on that contract. So apparently, there's who the fault lies with. But about the game itself, have we really gone full circle to the missed days? I mean, the game isn't even all that good. It certainly doesn't justify all of this drama.
Send your hate mail to Pedro at LinuxGameCast.com.
Yeah, I mean,
Myst
listen,
was only like that because the hardware at the time couldn't handle a fully 3D rendered
fucking HyperCard, son. I mean, on the Mac.
Nostalgia is the one market driver here forever. If you played this on your DOS machine in the 90s, you will totally fork out $5 to play it on your modern computer because reasons.
Yeah, I guess that's how Kickstarter keeps making money, isn't it? Yeah.
Up next.
You know what wasn't on Kickstarter? It was Homefront, The Revolution.
Oh, I thought you were going to say a virtual programming port, and I was going to have to correct
you. That's probably what's going to happen, but we'll get to that in a bit. This was originally a Crytek game that Deep Silver bought the rights to. So it is being published by Deep Silver, and that right there just screams, oh yeah, it's probably going to be a Neon wrapper port thing.
But the interesting thing is that CryEngine has an OpenGL renderer now. So will they go with the virtual programming route? Will they actually write new OpenGL code for it? We don't know. But I mean, given Deep Silver's previous history, they're probably going to VP it because it's cheaper. Listen, Deep Silver, we love you. Metro was great, but you can't keep riding on those coattails forever. You're going on the shit list if this is going to be another Eon port because we're done.
Well, I mean, I think this is definitely going to tell us. What was the huge space game also written with
Elite Dangerous?
Elite and
Star Citizen. Sorry,
was it Star Citizen? Okay,
no, Elite Dangerous was the carrying around. Yeah, it was Star Citizen.
Among Worlds. Either one, I forget, and the Fox. It was one of those two. Because the developer came out and was like, I would love to release the Linux version, but it doesn't have a valid OpenGL render. Then Crytek's now we do, and we've heard nothing from whichever one of those projects it was. Well, that's pretty much that. Take us the Brad out of here.
All right, coming up next, we talk about Bradvidia and their new drivers. And hell, even Bradtel has some new stuff down the pipe for Grid Brado Sports. I'm out of Brad puns. Kill it!
Oh, hey, check it out. It's the Brad. I mean, the news. Yes. And as usual, in true LGC tradition, we start with some drivers. NVIDIA has released yet another beta. This is the 361.18 beta, which they apparently they only added support for the GeForce 940MX and the Quadro M500M. But that's not exactly true because Jordan, you want to cut in?
Oh yeah. So I mean, we talked about this a little bit last week, where Aaron is sneaking in little fixes for bugs, such as that Steam crash thing, without really reporting in the changelog. So I voiced some curiousness about I wonder what else is being shoved in there, because we had actually talked about it. Handbrake had a bug with the latest NVIDIA drivers. Ven actually ran into it, and I saved him several hours of debugging.
I want to, let me do a mini PSA and a public thank you to you, Master Brad. pre-show last week, Jordan told me, he was like, oh, by the way, if you're using the beta drivers, there are reports that it crashes Handbrake, which is an important part of our tool chain on Sundays. I would have probably taken me 5 hours before I'd have gotten around to, like, maybe it's the video drivers question mark. Yeah, that's definitely a thing. But P-Man, you asked some question marks.
I did. I asked Brad himself, Mr. Aaron Plattner, and he said, well, there are often changes to the code that don't end up with a changelog entry, because I had asked him, do you guys have like a full changelog that lists everything? And he's example, the 360.118 has some SLI fixes, which are, pretty small, but they don't make it to the changelog before the build happens. So yeah, that explains that. So yeah, the Steam sneaky fix got through.
I love you, Aaron. But that's being a really shitty release engineer. I'm sorry, dude. I just call them as I see them. That's I couldn't get away with this.
I mean,
and
we like our changelogs as Linux users. We like our changelogs, and we like all the.
No, it's not even that. It's if you're going to put out a new piece of software for public consumption, you better fucking alert everyone as to what exactly has changed.
It's a beta, Brad. Come on.
I'm just saying, as a release engineer, it's some bad juju. But speaking of drivers. FreeDesktop.org announced a Mesa release 1.1.1.1.1.1.1.1 that adds a couple fixes, including an i965 patch for Grid Autosport if you have one of those Intel integrated IGPs and you want to play some Grid. And, I mean, we talk a lot of shit about the Intel video cards, but the reality of the situation is most computers come with one, and if you are a poor person, or if you don't know that much about computers, and you're getting into Linux, or you just have some old piece of hardware that you're trying to run Linux on,
what if you just installed Linux on your Mac, Brad?
Or if you install Linux on your Mac, that's a very true statement. You have a Radeon card that you can't use, so you might as well use the Intel guys.
In all fairness, you still get better performance out of an Intel Iris Pro than you do out of an R9 290 with the open source drivers. So I say more power to them.
Speaking of Radeon, AMD has cut the price of the Radeon R9 Nano to $499 wet, stinky American caches. And man, this would be fantastic news if their OpenGL stack on Linux didn't suck donkey balls. Seriously, I really wish they would pull a summer and get their shit together on this. I would love to make a Steam box in with these, but if you... all right, here's the thing. If you want to spend $499 wet stinky caches on a card that delivers the same performance under Linux as an NVIDIA 960, have at. That's all I got to say.
And I mean, to be fair, why would they give a shit about their OpenGL implementation when basically all the money they make is using either proprietary graphics languages like PSGL or DirectX? But, except for that, lucrative enterprise market that AMD has been clawing at desperately to make any degree of inroad, and maybe you should actually have a functional OpenGL stack. Just saying, Brad.
Yeah, as far as Linux is concerned, you're still far better off with the Mini ITX GTX 970 for that similar form factor, like a teeny tiny card that's able to output a shit ton of power. I mean, if you get one from Asus or Gigabyte, you can probably get it for around $350-370. It performs better and it's cheaper.
I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, take that shot. A lot of people are like, well, they're being competitive. Even when the Nano was released, even AMD enthusiasts were like, that shit's expensive, son.
Why?
And what are we going to use that for when we get like a Fury X for like a few quid more? I mean,
it's itty bitty, man. If you have space constraints in your giant fucking gaming PC that you're spending $400 on a video card for,
exactly. I mean, under Windows with the DirectX things those kids use.
Yeah, that's this literally the only thing that
like
AMD
straight up, trades punches with the 980, and I would love to live in this perfect Moon universe, Brad universe even, where it was equivalent with OpenGL, because that would be a very valid purchasing option. JB, what's up?
Oh, FNAP. Yeah, this is from FNA. You might remember it is that thing that Flibbijibibibo uses to port games, and he's attempting to get it under a minute, but I don't think he's quite there yet. But they've added a platform extraction layer. He posted this on Twitter earlier this week, or Google Plus, one of those social media things. And I thought that was kind of interesting because while the main targets for FNA are Windows, Mac, and Linux, there have been complaints, the odd complaints, mind you, that people, it doesn't support PlayStation 4, Xbox One, or insert console of choice here, so that's not good for my project. So Flibit has added an interface where you can cleanly implement your own platform stuff under FNA and have the cross-compile work for everything. It's nice. It's on head. I don't think it's in one of the major releases, but it will probably make it into the February one because he's on a monthly release cycle now. So good on him for that. Devs, if you are looking for a cross-platform game engine, give FNA a consideration, especially if you're doing a 2D game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Jordan, since you're on the GitHub run, why don't you give us the next one?
No, because we got a decentralized GitHub using BitTorrent, man. Oh no, this is Obo Zenri Riz. Buzz. I don't fucking know.
Buzz ready?
Something. Yeah. Obaz Rennie. I don't care. I give up.
I just read it as like Aussie.
Aussie.
What is it? Never heard of it.
It's a server browser for your various Linux compatible games. So if you are looking for a multiplayer game, and you don't feel like firing up your game client, you can use this little utility to look through game servers. Now, Ben, you were asking before, like, what is this actually useful for?
Because it seems like I remembered billions of years ago in the future's past, there was this thing called the Game Spies, the green icon thing I would see on my flatmate's desktop. But then I remembered, here in 2016 Moon Universe that we're currently living in, don't most games that most of these are, I mean, come on, we're looking
Steam
at the list
also
here,
has
right?
a server browser.
Steam's a thing, Quake.
Yeah. Well, not even that. Steam lets you just right-click on your friend and say, I want to join this person's game, and it will do it. But I was thinking, what could this be useful for? Lutris. This would be great for Lutris because you can see what servers are up if you want to play a game, and Lutris handles the launching and joining. That would be pretty neat. Strider, you're welcome.
Yeah, that's the thing. I back in the day, I used Yahoo's All-Seeing Eye. Because
I used GameSpot. It's the same shit.
Yeah, but basically, it pulled all the GameSpy servers, and it pulled a shit ton of other servers from other games that GameSpy did not support. And this is kind of what this guy is going for, is all those games that aren't supported by Steam under Linux, that you can't join the servers from the Steam server thing. You could just fire this up and it'll pull everything out, like those open source games like your Warsow's and your Open Arenas and whatnot. It's got everything in there.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Check it out, and maybe, Bradcore might be able to integrate it in Bradtrust one day, but let's talk about Brad Funds. If you don't know what this is Medora? A journey through unforgiving dungeons in this 90-inspired action adventure. Why are we talking about it? We're talking about it because it kind of... It made its goal. It was like 70,000 wet stinky caches, but the developer is like, well, can't make the game, Brad. Can't do it. And this, I don't like it. It's like refunds in the future. Once you read that, you realize I'm not shitting on this carbon-based entity. I'm not. Because I know things go south. And I mean, it takes a lot of intestinal fortitude to come forward and it's like, hey man, we fucked up. This is like our little post-mortem. But he's saying, I'd really like to give everyone refunds. There's some people I can't give refunds to, and maybe in the future I might be able to get another job and hand out some refunds. Well, what's our under and over on this? Is this a good thing, bad thing? I personally don't think, if you do anything on the Kickstarters or the Indiegogos or anything like that, you're really entitled to a refund, J-Baby.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look in the comments, there's a lot of Stockholm Syndrome. But then, like you said, it does take a lot of guts to actually come out and say, listen, we fucked up. We under-budgeted. We completely misread the scope of this entire project. We cannot do it. And it does take some balls to actually come out and say this. But at this point, most of us are used to unfulfilled Kickstarter goals or things that have been pushed back indefinitely. I know people who were waiting on Larian finally got their fucking release, sort of, kind of
present.
Yep. But I mean, yeah, it's shitty that it had to go this way. I mean, hindsight is 2020. But all I can say is Carmageddon is waving in the distance.
Yeah, definitely with that.
Carmageddon,
P-Man, one thing I
Frontiers.
want to ask you. This is something I've actually encountered with a couple of friends that have had Kickstarter projects. Two of them have succeeded, one is kind of nope. And the first thing I always ask is, like, I was successfully funded in much smaller amounts than the 73,000 wet stinkies. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, 70 out of 63. I was like, so you get a new place, right? A new apartment? And I was like, yes. Like, wrong. No. Am I wrong by saying that? I say you have not completed anything. You don't complete it until you actually make the game and turn a profit, right? Am I crazy?
That is the utopian perfection. If all the Kickstarters and all the crowdfunding projects went that way, that is the utopia that everyone's targeting. Yes. The money that they make will go for the game, but that's not what happens. Devs will spend money on superfluous bullshit, and then the game gets kind of sidetracked, and they start missing deadlines, and this happens.
I mean, one of the big things about why Double Fine keeps missing their targets is feature creep. They're like, oh yeah, we decided we're going to add this and this and this and this and this. By the way, we can't be on that
but Double Fine has that whole. I'm actually kind of amazed that Peter Molyneux hasn't joined Double Fine yet because of all the over-promising and under-delivering.
Yeah, listen, if I can love Double Fine can get away with it, because they got money in the bank. I mean, they're not as struggling. I mean, yeah, they're an indie team, but pretty fucking big-ass company.
And they're good to
days,
Linux,
right?
so they get a pass for now.
All right, well, let's run this up the walls.
Oh, yeah, this is Unvanquished. Alpha 47 is out. And I read through all of these fucking commit messages because I was hoping for some funny stuff.
Is my favorite one at the bottom, Brad? No.
No. But they did fix a Division by Zero bug by adding the -D Chuck_Norris sequels 1 flag to their CMake. They've also added a power slide, and I'm a little upset that they didn't include cock push-ups either, because I think those two go hand in hand. But they also fixed the issue with ladders. Apparently, when you were climbing up, you'd move at like a regular speed because you don't zoom up ladders like Sonic the Hedgehog until now. So a couple other fixes. This is just your standard Unvanquished Alpha release. Beyond that, nothing huge. Aside from the whole wall.
Pedro, what the hell is an Unvanquished? I've never heard of it. Is it like just a first-person shooter? Or?
It is it's an asymmetrical first-person shooter / real-time strategy game in that one person is the captain. They get to play an RTS, as it were, and setting up like infrastructures and all that.
Right.
And the other players are basically just playing an FPS, but one team is humans, the other ones are aliens.
Oh, so it's kind of like that game on Steam that we still can't play without Spike.
I was going to say, it's everyone's
another thing I need to ask.
Functional community maintained.
That sounds kind of awesome. It sounds expensive, though, P-Man.
Oh, yeah, it's stupidly expensive. Natural Selection 2 is currently going for like $20. This one, Unvanquished, is free.
All right.
Yeah.
Script it to me, baby.
Speaking of open source projects, the guys at Zorios, or ZorioS, whatever you want to call it, they are the ones attempting to create a basic engine that will run all the Aurora Engine games from back in the day. Think your KOTORs, your Neverwinter Nights, your Neverwinter Nights 2s, Dragon Age 2, and Sonic Chronicles for the Nintendo DS. Yes. Basically, they've made a little bit of headway in decompiling bytecode from the games themselves, specifically Neverwinter Nights. I do want to correct you when you say they. It's like one guy. If you subscribe to the Reddits, go to All Reverse Engineering. He's got a good thread in there about when he originally asked and some of the steps he's gone through. Yes, it's just the one guy. But yeah, I like to think of it as a team for the occasional people that actually chip in and contribute a little bit of code. But yeah, basically all he's done is managed to get the game to spit out, to dump a little bit of bytecode into a script. And how he did that was using NWScript, which was, if you ever fired up the Aurora toolset for Neverwinter Nights, you'll know that it has a scripting. Yeah, it has a scripting engine built into it, and it'll store the source files as .nss, and once you compile them, it'll compile it into .ncs. And what they want to do now is to have the decompiler dump the code as .ncs, which will, in theory, that's what they're hoping for, provide much better source code to fill in the blanks for all the games that you're trying to support with this project, which is kind of amazing. I want to see this one happen. It's like playing native Dragon Age Origins on Linux. Yes.
Well, I mean, I keep joking. This is the only way we're gonna get a native Witcher game under Linux.
The Witcher 1, yeah.
But do you know one thing that you can always fund that is currently natively under Linux?
Gaming on Linux? No, it's LinuxGameCast, our Patreon, our Bradtreon. If you head on over to patreon.com/LinuxGameCast, we have our little crowdfunding nonsense up there you can donate to. We're not asking for much, 5 cents a show. We just love seeing your support, and it helps us put this out every week because it is expensive. We push something to the tune of like 7 terabytes a month in terms of bandwidth.
Easy.
And that gets expensive really, really quickly. So every little bit helps. We got some goals. We are still, I think, a little under $2 away from Linux Gamecast Weekly Daily Wednesday, a brand new show.
$135
with a 5-ish bucks. Yeah.
It's an entirely brand new show about general Linux stuff. We're gonna have people on. I think we have Ryan C. Gordon potentially booked. That's gonna be fun. We're gonna see if we can get as many people as we can to come on and talk about their various projects. It's gonna be cool, and that unlocks at $135 episode. It's pretty good. Check it out. Patreon.com/LinuxGameCast. So you might remember a couple weeks ago, you might have picked up the game Descent Underground for $2 from an Indie Gala bundle. And it came with a bunch of other games that you really didn't care about. This is one of them. This is Taimumari, and it's facing the CHAIRQUISITION. They're from Turnox Games. Built on Game Maker Studio. You can pick it up for around 5 units of your local space currency. And what is it? It's a retro-style platform game in keeping with the best traditions of games of our childhood. Take control of the Himari, a young female wizard traveling across various stages to settle the balance of in time across the whole world. Meaning it's a retro hipster pixel platformer, and that's it. And it faces the CHAIRQUISITION. 1 chair means that it's garbage. 2 chairs means that it's meh. 3 chairs means that it's pretty good. And 4 chairs means that it's amazeballs. We also got our categories Doom, Makes with the Working, Shiny Sands, Controls, and Fun. So let's kick this off then. Did this game bring your system to a halt?
It almost did, Brad. It almost did over here with the Ubuntu 1404 LTS. 64-bit, 8150 AMD powered, NVIDIA 980 displayed, well-powered, 4K displayed, box of the business. It really ran without issue. There's no complaints to make other than I can't get on the latest beta drivers because of Handbrake, so, I mean, Steam crashes, but it has nothing to do with this game. I'm going to give that 4 chairs out of the box, Oregon.
Yeah, I don't think it's worth it to even go through my specs, considering you could probably run this game on a TI calculator.
You don't even need an operating system, didn't you?
You really don't. This thing will just run on the metal, so I'll give it 4 chairs on Fedora 22, 64-bit.
Yeah, and on Fedora 23, 64-bit with the FX 8370 and the GTX 970. It ran out of the box. Really? No complaints here for this specific category. 4 chairs.
Yeah, just completely curb stomped my Skylake processor. I got like maybe 2 frames a second out of it. That's 4 chairs for Mix with the Working. Up next is Shiny and Sounds.
Okay, well, it is hipster pixel-tastic, fortunately on a scale to fugly to meh. It kind of leans towards the meh side. It's a pretty good thing. It's the best kind of meh you can expect from someone who has never played retro games on a 480i CRT. Allow me to give you Exhibit Fuck Mothering A. It's a diagram of sort. Maybe you might even call it a Venn diagram. This is what it originally looked like, and this is what millennials think pixel art should look like. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's definitely a thing. That said, The sounds, they're about as legit as I've seen in a long time. So for what it's trying to be and what people actually consider, hipster pixel graphics, I mean, it does what it says on the tin. So I'm going to give that a solid 3 chairs.
I don't know. Like the graphics are just kind of there. I mean, if you look at a game like Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery, which basically uses an Atari 2600 aesthetic, that game is fucking beautiful. And this game is just kind of there. The sounds are kind of meh. They're your standard boop, beep, boop, boop, whatever 8-bit type sounds you'd expect from this sort of game. They're not terrible, but nothing really remarkable. So I'll have to give that 2 chairs.
Yeah, I can argue on that terrible bit. But yeah, I honestly can't give it 1 chair because the graphics, hipster pixely as they are, they're there. And the sounds, grating and ear stab inducing as they are, they do work as well. So I can't give it 1 chair, but I did mute both the music and the sound effects 5 minutes in because I could not fucking deal with it anymore. 2 chairs.
All right, so that's 2 chairs for the shinny and the sounds. Up next is the controls, Ben.
Well, I picked it up with the exclude controller and didn't have to do anything else. I mean, it worked. Everything was mapped properly. Going to have to ding in a chair, though, because that double jump, that's a bit of hit or miss, and absolutely at the worst times. But we'll get more into that during the fun section. So 3 chairs for controls.
Yeah, I played this primarily on the Steam controller, just because I didn't have any other controllers handy at the moment. Actually, no, I did try it with the PlayStation 4 controller, and I just didn't know what the fuck to do with it. The Xbox, or not the Xbox controller, the Steam controller requires a bit of fuckery and big picture mode to actually make this playable, because by default it uses this clicky pad for directional movement, and that just straight up does not work when you're trying to do precision platforming, so you have to remap it to the analog stick. I also remapped the right bumper, to the right trigger, because otherwise I was just unable to hit the buttons. One little handy thing about the Steam controller is the rear grippy buttons are mapped to A and B, and when you're trying to execute really complex jump combinations, having the grippy button is awesome because it just uses you're using different muscles, so it's a little easier to execute. So I'll give that 3 chairs.
Yeah, that full controller support that they claim in their Steam page, and no cavats this time, that's just a fucking lie. The game very clearly detects both the NVIDIA Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. controller and the Logitech F310 that I have plugged into the Steam box over there. It detects them because it shows them on the options menu, and there's their full name right there, big bold fucking letters. And none of the buttons do anything. I don't mind platforming with a keyboard. I've gone on record as saying that before, but this game was very clearly meant to be played with a controller, and I can't.
It was meant to be played with this racing wheel, son.
I can't. So it gets 2 chairs because, again, on a technicality, I can't give it 1.
All right, so that's 2 chairs for Control. And finally, our last category of the night, fun. Then, did you enjoy Taimumari?
Sit back and crack open a cold one. Giggity. In an age where I own 350 plus Linux games, it's easy to forget the days of the SNES Master. Well, not the SNES Master System's what I called it, because I had both. Fuck you all. Back then...
Oh, look at Mr. Rich Guy.
I know, I was rolling at it. Back then, you might only get 2 or 3 games a year, and, you played the ever-loving shite out of them, no matter the difficulty. I mean, what else were you going to do? Go outside? ? Seriously? Hell. If Shadow Warriors, also known as, what was it,
Ninja Gaiden?
Exception.
Ninja something. If that...
Shinobi?
Ninja
Gaiden.
Was that Ninja Gaiden? Was that it?
Maybe.
Either way, if that was released today, it would actually be called Rage Bait. These days, if a game genuinely challenges the player, even on easy, it's often called Fuck You Hard for the sake of being Fuck You Hard trademark, usually by millennials who consider the latest wave of hand-holding hipster pixel bullshit retro gaming. I'm not saying rage platformers don't exist. Claire's a super meat for it because that's an actual rage platformer, but that was built from the ground up for that porpoise. Tamagotchi. How do you say this? I'm just going to call it Tamagotchi. It's fuck you hard.
Go nuts.
For a different reason. Because it's poorly made. I mean, seriously, there's no knockback. I mean, the enemies can just run straight through you. That's irritating as piss. Double jump will spite fail, granted. Does keep things very interesting. And your protagonist is covered with crazy glue. And considering that there's chunks of levels, which is repeated constantly, where Object X is trying to squish you while you're trying to run Yar, sticking on random things, not being able to do anything about it, is a bit annoying. At the end of the day, you're fighting a poorly made game, but Flying Spaghetti Monster, help me. Beating a level is hella satisfying. In fact, I'm almost tempted to say at 4.99 wet stinky cash, it's a small price to pay for a game that made me wish my monitor peace among worlds in celebration after I beat 2 levels. Bitches. So, for fun, I'm going to give this 3 chairs, mainly because of the price.
Yeah, I mean, this game, this from the second you start playing this game, you realize it borrows a lot from the classic Mega Man formula. I mean, it from like the way enemies are introduced to even like selecting your level to unlocking new abilities. It's all very much a Mega Man clone. The no knockback thing, I didn't really mind so much because a lot of enemies will just stop if you hit them. They won't necessarily fly back, but they'll stop whatever they're doing unless they're right in the middle of a cycle. And yeah, like I said in the control section, using the rear grip buttons actually makes this game a lot more playable, just because it's a dynamic I'm not really used to, but I like it. I think I'm going to start using the Steam controller for a lot more platformers just by virtue of it. And then it turns into Tappy Chicken. Yeah, no, that you eventually get wings.
Yes, that one level, that one time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, no, there's that one level for half of the entire freaking level after you get the wings. If there's like a Flake Shmup segment, and then there's a Tappy Chicken segment. Mm-hmm. I don't know. My biggest gripe with the game is I like the platform mechanics. I actually like the grippy thing because it gives you multiple ways of moving around the level, which is something I like. It's a technique known as jacking your game. But there's not a lot of variety when it comes to the levels themselves. It's all just like, oh yeah, here's this one thing that you need to do, and here's a bunch of variations on it, repeated ad nauseum. And I feel like the platforming elements are really, really wasted in this. If the levels were longer and more diverse, I think I would have had a lot more fun with this. I can reliably make it to the bosses in basically every level, except I just don't feel any real desire to beat them. I have no strong feelings for this game one way or the other. I can see what it's trying to do. It does some things well, but ultimately it's just meh. And meh in CHAIRQUISITION equals 2.
Oh, look, it's another YouTube bait rage platformer. There is absolutely no skill involved with this game. All it takes is like 5% memory and 95% of trial and fucking error.
And how many bosses
After
did you
minutes... beat? What?
How many bosses did you beat with that no skill?
I got to all the bosses, but I didn't beat any of them because I couldn't fucking bother with it.
Sorry.
After 10 minutes of playing the game, I had my opinion set in stone, as it were. Yeah, get it? I only played...
You want to draw me a diagram?
Yes. I only played up to the 1 hour mark for the sake of the chairs. Steam says that I played like over 100 minutes, but that's because I alt-tabbed out of the game and watched the YouTube video and I forgot that it was still running. This is one of those platformers that brings absolutely nothing new to the genre. It's literally regurgitating tropes and borrowing mechanics wholesale from other, much better games. Hell, it even, Jordan already mentioned this, at one point has a section that can only be described as a Flappy Bird segment. If you want me to care about your hipster pixel action platformer, you better do something different. Like Risk of Rain. Risk of Rain, that was a stupidly good game. Go play that instead, because Taimumari gets 1 chair.
Alright, so that's 2 whole chairs for fun, and if we tally all that mess up, Taimumari gets 2 chairs, which is about what you should have paid for it when it was on sale through the Indie Gala bundle. But we've shat on this enough. Final thoughts?
Saying I liked it would be a bit much. But it has been a long time since I was genuinely challenged. Granted, I was challenged by the bugs and the fuckery of this game, but challenged nonetheless. And for me, whatever, we spent like the £2 on that bundle to get it. But even at $5, what stinky cashers, there was that not snapping a controller, not doing anything I would have did in my youth. And by that, I mean like 2 weeks ago. I thought it was kind of worth it.
Yeah, getting it through the bundle sort of excuses it, but $5? No fucking way. You'd have to pay me probably $500 to actually play this game to any sort of, to have any sort of commitment while playing it, because otherwise, no. Stay
That's
away
why
from it.
Nori loves him, because of his fear of commitment. Yeah, I mean, honestly, all I can say about this game is it needs to be better. It seems kind of half-assed in its level design.
I'm
like
just saying, both of you would have continued playing if you were actually good enough to beat a boss.
I almost beat the night boss, but it was after I died. It's like, I don't want to have to go through that entire freaking thing again. It's tedious.
Yep.
And yeah, that's really what it is. It just devolves into tedium very, very quickly. But up next, we got the hate mail segment where we discuss why Mac is the future of gaming. It's great.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's the hate mail. Yeah, we go around hating on mails all the time, but at this point, you probably know how to get in touch with us. If you want to hate on these 3 mails right here, you know how to get in touch with us. If you just want to ask a question, if you want relationship advice, if you want to promote your game, although if you want to promote your game, just send us 3 Steam keys or 3 Humble keys, or let us play around with whatever alpha, beta, prototype thing you have for your game at this point. If we can't play the thing you're trying to promote, we're just going to make fun of you. But that relationship advice thing, we'll still up for that. No
I
need
was
for
absolutely joking about that, but I like how you ran with it. But coming up first is actually only because this was kind of a monolithic response from our friend Daniel.
Yes.
Looking to game in Linux. He writes, "Hi guys, love your show. I'm looking to switch to Linux from Windows for gaming. Only reason I've been using Windows is because, of games. Just have a couple of questions. What's the best desktop distro? Let's just handle this one at a time here. What's the best desktop distro to use that has the best gaming experience? Basically, out of the box, I should be able to play games. Any video cards. I'm looking to upgrade my video card. What are your recommendations? I'm a little behind on your episodes. So if this has been answered, please let me know what episodes. I just bought a NVIDIA 770. 3. The games I keep going back to are the Blizzard games, StarCraft, WoW, Diablo 3. What's the best way to make these work with Linux? Question mark. And to finish this off, I hear wine. I hear QMU. And voices. He didn't say that. I just made that up. Not sure what the best way is to be able to play those games with little no issues. Thanks for your time, guys. All right. P-Man, help us out here.
Yeah, so before Ven and Jordan kick in with their spiels, I'm just going to play devil's Bradvocate on this one and say that your point number 1, the best desktop distro, it doesn't really matter. But since you're coming from Windows, like Linux Mint with Cinnamon, Lubuntu, Shubuntu, or even Ubuntu Mate will feel the most familiar. Point number 2, it depends on your budget. If you have like $350 to spend, get a GTX 970. If you have up to $200, get a GTX 960. If you have like $1,000 to spend on a video card, I'm jealous. And you can probably at that point go for a Titan X or a 980 Ti. Point number 3, the games you keep going back are StarCraft, WoW, Diablo 3. Your best option at that point is, assuming you went with Mint or one of the Ubuntu flavors, just install the Wine Builds PPA and then install Wine Staging. At that point, there will be, a description in the show notes to help you with all the copy pasta that you'll need for the terminal. At that point, you can just run the Battle.net installer with wine staging, and most of the games should just work. Trademark.
Yeah. So, I mean, then we'll go into this in a little more detail. My opinion differs from him a little bit. But gaming really isn't a reason to switch to Linux. I mean, like from a personal standpoint, I cut over full time because I hate working in Windows with a passion, a fiery passion.
That's because you work
rivals.
with Windows.
A fiery passion that rivals the burning of 1,000 suns or that gonorrhea I got last week from that very questionable hooker. But I mean, if you are a fan of multiplayer games and you seem to indicate that you like Blizzard games, Diablo, StarCraft, and so on, I wouldn't recommend switching outright because while you can run it in Wine or you can use a QEMU-based solution, which by the way actually requires that you get a secondary video card and secondary monitor because you're literally just setting GPU out of it through the hypervisor to that graphics sync. So. Excuse me. Yeah, so really any solution is not the greatest for Blizzard games, especially because Blizzard tends to bring out the ban hammer if they detect you using Wine because you're a cheating fucking heathen.
They fixed that.
You know, for now, who's to say?
After denying it.
After denying, of course. And I mean, if you're looking for raw performance, Windows games tend to be a lot more performant, just simply because no one knows how to write OpenGL code. But having said all that, I highly recommend that you take the plunge. I do not miss Windows. When I go back to having to use it for work, I keep missing like little things in Linux that make my life easier that are just not happening under Windows. But you have to be mindful that there is a learning curve. All operating systems are not created equally. So don't expect everything to work in the same way that you're used to. Be patient and be willing to learn. That is the main thing that you need to be a successful Linux user. And, suck it up, learn a little bit of command line. It's not hard. It really isn't.
Well, Brad, everything I'm about to say, I say with absolute love. Cocaine Voltron and LGC cares. Keep that in mind. If you're currently using Windows for gaming and that's what you're using it for, keep using Windows for gaming. I mean, it's good for that. I couldn't recommend anything else other than, unless you really want to, like, quit clicking that please install Windows 10 screen. Outside of that, I mean, maybe if you gamify that could be fun for you. Outside of that, I do need to say I'm a Linux user who likes to game, and that's where you need to start. Or you're just going to have a bad time. I mean, there's a common misconception. It's like, I'm a Linux gamer because I installed... I run Arch Linux! And I got a dual boot, and I installed Steam, and I played a game once, and I should get into threads and say it doesn't matter if it's native ports or not, because I'm just going to screech over to my Windows box and play it anyways and get yourself involved in... that type of shit angers and upsets Cocaine Voltron because I'm a Linux user. I'm coming at it completely different. I've been using Linux solely as my operating system, no dual booting, since 1995. I mean, that's coming up on 20 years almost. So I got to say that
it is 20 years.
Yeah, and I'm saying, don't take this the right way, but I mean, if you're a Linux user currently and you don't really know what distribution or desktop manager you should use, you really need to learn the OS first and find the mix that works for you, son. My friend, you absolutely do, because Linux is a kernel. That's it. That's what Linux is, man. I mean, it's a BZ image.
Stallman, no! Stop it! You're killing the children! Stop it, Richard! Come on!
I mean, Knyol Linux. Here's the whole thing. I mean, you can run Hannah Montana Linux, and a lot of people say, Then how do you run Ubuntu 14.04 LTS? It's like, begrudgingly. But I always bring up the example. It doesn't matter. I mean, I've ran Fedora since Fedora Core, when it was called Core. Since one, you can give me Hannah Montana Linux. I'm just going to be able to rip out the crap I don't want, put back in the stuff I do want. It's that portable. It's that usable. And you need to learn that level of usability, or you're just going to have a bad time. And you need to spend some time with the penguin and caress its hips.
But Ven, I know. Continue your bit, and then I'll say.
Jordan, I understand you do not believe penguins have hips, but look that shit up, son. You can caress the hips
I know
of a penguin.
the hips are inside their body. I can biology. What I was gonna say was, but I don't want to enter text. I want to click on things. Typing is hard.
Mavis,
you can use Gnome. I mean, if you really want to.
Mavis Beacon.
What? That's why I said Ubuntu. This is just.
Unity and Mirror are the future of gaming. You heard it here first. And on that bombshell,
Let's cue the music, because you can always find us around 9:30 Eastern Standard Moon Time right here on the twitch.tvs, cleverly disguised under talk shows. And I mean,
Gaming talk
Brad shows, Linux bradding shows, because that's what we do. I'm cleverly disguised at Vinstone, plus Vinstone on the G pluses.
I'm Jordan Svung. You can see me posting myself, leaking various fluids out of my head on Twitter at The Burning Pool, or you can get the up-to-date text recaps at Google Plus at plus Jordan Svung.
You can find me posting pictures about out from my balcony
Penises.
on Google Plus at plus Peter or on Twitter, just randomly replying to people and generally trolling at unaccounted for.
He has so many pictures of him
beautiful
tucking
party
his sack
people,
back.
Guys and goyles, there are only 4 Brads. 4 Brads.
There are 4 Brads! There are
It's
5
a cocaine
Brads.
Bradtron.
You didn't even
There
get the
are
reference.
4
Dynafire Pedro.
Brads! 4 lights! There are 5 lights, Picard. 4! 5 dudes.